Launching a podcast is easy. Growing is the real challenge. If you've been posting episodes for a while but your audience isn't growing, you're not alone. We helped one of our clients gain over 1,000 subscribers and 29,070 views with just 4 videos using the 80-20 principle.
And today we are revealing the entire strategy to you for free. First of all, if your podcast is not on YouTube, you are falling behind because YouTube is doing an excellent job of distributing your episodes. Something Spotify and Apple Podcasts are liking, while YouTube is pretty much free advertising.
To give you some insider info about Spotify or Apple Podcasts, the only way your podcast becomes visible is by being ranked in the top charts. Spotify ranks you by followers and monthly views. So if you're smaller or just starting out, you have very low chances to get discovered. I did some research in the marketing niche and I found many dead channels which haven't been posting for months and still been ranked in the top 100.
Research has shown that YouTube already ranks as the #1 podcast platform. Here is what makes YouTube so special. YouTube is the second biggest search engine after Google. Besides that, it is the biggest streaming platform, bigger than Netflix.
Every time I check my home feed on YouTube, there are at least 2 small channels on it. YouTube is giving small channels a chance to be found. But what makes podcasting such a powerful tool? Robert Dunbar, a scientist, studied about trust and how long it takes humans to trust others. He found out that it takes around 7 hours to trust another human. Therefore, if a viewer watches 7 hours of content, he starts trusting us much more.
Another great number is 11. Google found out it takes 11 positive interactions to trust a brand. So having a podcast helps you tremendously build your trust with potential customers. But how do you get shown on YouTube?
Here's a quick overview of how the algorithm works. Please do not focus on the algorithm. The algorithm is just there to help you. We always focus on people and psychology. YouTube gives every video something like an ID and tries to match this ID with a viewer who has the matching ID. That means if no one is online at 3 a.m., YouTube can't show your video to anyone. The more positive viewer signals YouTube gets, the bigger the audience size will be, also called impressions. So, what is the 80-20 principle and how does it work for your podcast?
The 80-20 principle says that the vital 20% will drive 80% results. The same goes for YouTube. There are certain things that drive more results than others. The big 20% from our strategy consists of 3 pieces.
So let's start with the first piece, the click, which consists out of thumbnail and title. The reason why this is the most important factor is because if no one clicks, no one watches. It doesn't matter how expensive the studio was, it doesn't matter who the guest was, and it doesn't matter if your guest has the magic formula to become filthy rich. No one will ever watch, unfortunately. For example, Mr. Beast, the most successful YouTuber with 300 million subscribers, spends an average of $10,000 per thumbnail because he understands the importance of it.
Just think about how you choose a new movie on Netflix. By the cover and title. They know that in order for you to choose what to watch, the cover has to catch your eye right away. It's that image that makes you stop and think, that's interesting. I want to watch. If the cover doesn't grab you, you just move on to the next one, right? And YouTube, it's no different. The thumbnail is like the cover of your video. And if it's not eye-catching, clear, and to the point, no one will click on it. But how can these big YouTubers see if their thumbnail and title was working or not?
In the analytics, you can evaluate your performance. Check for your click-through rate, CTR. With great packaging, you can double your views easily. Let me show it to you with an easy example. Let's say YouTube sends your video to 100,000 people, means you will have 100,000 impressions. If we have a CTR of 2%, we will have 2,000 views. But if we can enhance our CTR to a 4%, we will have 4,000 views. And that's why packaging is the quickest way to increase your views. This can lead to a snowball effect. When more people click on your video, YouTube sees this as a positive viewer signal and starts sending your video to an even bigger audience, leading to more and more and more views. But what is a good CTR?
The CTR is always dependent on how many impressions you got. Because if your video is only shown to a few people, your CTR can be very high, and the more your video is shown, the lower your CTR can be. For example, if your impressions are in the millions, a 1% is still good, because that means you got 100,000 views. But if you only got 1,000 impressions and your CTR is 1%, you know that you have to change some things up. For average, here's a chart we got from VeraQ, the biggest certified platform for YouTube channel management.
Just note that it varies from niche. We know some of the biggest podcasts have a CTR of 15% on their best videos. As a rule of thumb, I say to check your average CTR of all your recent videos and try to improve this one constantly. And here's how to find your average CTR. This works best on PC. Go to your studio, click on Analytics, Advanced Mode, and here you can see your overall CTR. Just note that shorts will be displayed there too if you upload shorts. You can filter them out on the top left corner. And there you can see your average CTR.
But something we had to learn the hard way, if you are a small channel and you do not have a big audience yet, we noticed that some of our thumbnails were not performing as expected. A closer look at the analytics showed us that YouTube tests our videos first in the suggested section, where our CTR is much lower than on the browse section.
Suggested is on the desktop here on the side or on mobile all the way down. To see where your impressions are from, click again on your studio, content, select your latest video, analytics, advanced mode, and click traffic source. Here you can see your CTR for each source such as browse, suggested, channel page, and so on. It showed us how important it is to create a thumbnail which looks good on suggested. Before, we were too focused on browse and didn't understand why our video wasn't catching any traffic. So after you collect your average CTR of your channel, you always can react when your CTR is relatively low compared to your other videos. Just make sure to check where the traffic is coming from.
Okay, so how do you know how your thumbnail is going to look like on suggested or browse? Here's a great and free tool we use when creating thumbnails. The name of this tool, or actually a website, is thumbsup.tv. We can drop our thumbnail here and choose a title to see how it will look in each category. You can choose between dark mode and light mode. Just to give you a tip, according to surveys, 81.9% of smartphone users use dark mode. Therefore, we always optimize for dark mode. So here you can see web browser, home large, which will be on browse. And the other one is going to be sidebar for the suggested. For mobile, it's going to be mobile, home. Now let's talk about thumbnails. Unfortunately, good thumbnails can't save bad ideas. To make good thumbnails, you need good ideas. For podcasts, for example, think about what problem you're trying to solve and which guest you will bring to help you to do that. I want you always to keep your target audience in mind. When you understand their needs, you will know how to create thumbnails that catch their attention. After analyzing around 369 podcasts with my life and business partner David, we noticed a common mistake. Most people focus too much on the aesthetics of the thumbnails and end up neglecting crucial aspects like grabbing attention and sparking curiosity. What I'm going to show you now is something I learned from a YouTube expert named Jay Alto. The way he breaks down the concept of thumbnails makes a lot of sense to me, and I want to share that with you. After all, quality content is meant to be shared, right? A thumbnail consists of 80% of theory. So grab attention, use vibrant colors with good contrast, and limit yourself to just 3 elements, 4 at most. For example, a face plus an object and some text. Don't overload it, please. People have milliseconds to make a decision. Also, try using a limited color palette. Here are some examples for you. Build a curiosity gap. For podcasts, try to use phrases that generate some kind of emotion and get your target audience interested. Here's an example from one of the biggest podcast channel, The Diary of a CEO. Your comfortable life will cause cancer. Disclaimer: don't waste valuable space on your thumbnail by only putting the guest's name on nothing else. That's not going to be enough to generate clicks. Even if we were interviewing Taylor Swift, people would recognize her without her name. Use that space for a short phrase that provides value or sparks curiosity. You can choose to put the guest name at the end of the title for SEO purposes if you want. Compatibility between thumbnail, title, and content. Meet expectations, deliver on the promise. If not, people will quickly leave and it will feel like clickbait. For example, from Jay Shetty, 5 hacks to beat sugar cravings. The Sugar Expert, everything you need to know about glucose spikes. Or from Ali Abdaal's podcast, Don't Date for Attraction, the Science of Attraction, Why You've Not Met Someone, Matthew Hussey. Let's talk about the other 20%, which is design. Skills in Photoshop, technical knowledge, color correction, and design fundamentals like structure and composition, they are important. If you're going to use text in your thumbnail, opt for bold, thick fonts, and colors that contrast well with the background. This is crucial because most of the time, the thumbnail will be viewed in a much smaller size, making it harder to read. A common mistake when creating thumbnails is designing them only on large screens without checking how they appear in different feeds. To avoid this problem, I recommend using the website I previously told you guys, the thumbsup.tv, which allows you to see the final result across different feeds and devices. If you're just starting your podcast channel or your channel is still quite small, I recommend focusing on optimizing your thumbnails for the suggested videos feed. Adjust the size of images and elements to ensure clarity and visual impact, even in smaller formats. This strategy can increase your visibility and attract more clicks, since your channel is still small, and YouTube doesn't have a lot of data about it or your audience, so the platform tends to test your content primarily in the suggested video section. Take this thumbnail as an example. If we check this thumbnail on the home feed or browse on Thumbs Up, everything looks fine. The timestamp isn't covering anything. However, a common mistake people make is neglecting the suggested feed. If you check the thumbnail on the sidebar, you will see the timestamp covering the text. No viewer will try to guess what it is, and this will lose you many clicks. After a few adjustments, you can see the text is now fully visible and the timestamp no longer blocks it. This simple fix will help you avoid losing clicks. Always keep this in mind. Effective elements. Strategic use of color, branding elements, and a sharp, large image of the guest's face. We humans are wired to pay attention to faces because we are social species, constantly scanning our surroundings. When we see a face, our brain automatically classifies it as trustworthy friend, untrustworthy enemy, or attractive potential partner. There's no avoiding it. This happens automatically. Think about when you're walking through your city and without realizing, your eyes are just drawn to someone familiar. It's human instinct. Next time you're on YouTube, notice how a face can grab your attention instantly. Here are other examples of portraits we've seen in thumbnails. If you wish, you can add a background of your podcast so that people recognize your studio and your brand too. A little tip here, every time a thumbnail catches your eye, save it in your inspiration folders, save as many as you can, and reshape the ones you like best with your own touch.
Let's talk about the second part of the packaging next. Titles. Usually, the thumbnail catches the eye and the title convinces the viewer to click. After collecting over 400 titles that work very well, we can share with you what works. Something we see often is that the title is just repeated on the thumbnail. If you do this, then you don't need a title and can leave it blank, theoretically. Here are a few rules for titles. Before making a title, think about who would benefit most from watching. This helps you to target the right audience. In the packaging in general, we want to focus on something the audience wants to tackle within the video what they need. Think of a problem-aware audience rather than a solution-aware audience. What does it exactly mean? So, for example, if we were publishing a video about how to write better titles for podcasts, only a small part of our target audience would click. But instead, we would title it like, "Focus on this to double your views of your podcast." We tell our viewers how they will benefit from watching. Every podcast wants more views, but they might not understand the importance of improving their titles. But you do know after watching this part. Grab viewers' attention with both thumbnail and title. They are complementing each other, not repeating each other. Keep the title short, about 55 characters. But depending where you get most of your traffic, that can differ. On browse and suggested, shorter title will convert better. While on search, the viewer invests more time reading the title and longer titles can work here better. But I'd advise you to focus on browse and suggested, where most organic growth is coming from. And titles on YouTube will be cut after around 60 characters. Avoid using titles with only capital letters. The first reason is that, according to surveys from YouTube, people avoid titles in all capital letters because it seems like they're screaming at them. Therefore, YouTube shows this to fewer people. The second reason is it takes away even more space and your title will be cut after around 55 characters. A technique we learned from copywriters is to use capital letters on words you want to emphasize, maybe a keyword, for example. Another mistake. Same as on the thumbnail, do not mention the episode number in the title. It doesn't bring any value to the viewer and you will have less space for your title to convert. Not great. Another thing which isn't important is to repeat the name of your podcast. Your name is just written next to your title. Unnecessary. YouTube understands from who this podcast is and you do not need to repeat it for SEO reasons. YouTube already does the link for you. YouTube also scans your video's audio and visuals and creates metadata, so SEO does not play a big role on YouTube anymore. According to YouTube itself, SEO hasn't played a big role since 2019. Next, do not put the guest name at the start of the title. What we do though is to mention the guest name at the end of our title to be found in search, and we also want to tell our audience who this great person is we are talking to. So, for example, use words that make people feel emotions such as curiosity, desire, or fear. Use negative titles. They often work well because they make people pay attention like news headlines do. Then, avoid using question in titles. They usually don't work as well, according to the YouTube title expert Jake Thomas. Use simple words that a 12-year-old can understand because we want everyone to understand it. And last but not least, no columns. This usually screams AI title to me. Use AI to get inspiration or enhance your title, but don't let AI do the full job. In general, the real trick to a title is truly understanding what problem they can solve, and it's about making it broad enough so that people are interested and specific enough so that people feel like this is the one you've got to listen to. And it's an art. Keep trying until you find a proven formula for your podcast. And the trick for thumbnails about remodeling works here the same. Save many titles you clicked on and try to remodel them from different videos or different niches. Let's talk about the next piece of the big 20%, the hook, the first 30 seconds. Back in the days, views were the most important metric on YouTube, but YouTube is learning every day, so they noticed that many creators were using bad clickbait for their videos. Pictures that did not resonate with the rest of the video. For that reason, YouTube is measuring very closely the first 30 seconds of your video to see using clickbait. Also, most viewers judge a video by its first 30 seconds. Therefore, the higher retention of your hook is, the higher your overall retention of your video will be. Podcast must have an intro because you're making a long form video. You have to let people know what you're going to be talking about to convince them to watch your hour-long episode. You need to earn their time. And here is a no-go for the first 30 seconds. Do not ask viewers to like, subscribe, or anything like that. Likes and subscribers are not important metrics. Subscribers are only important to get accepted to the YouTube Partner Program and get your channel monetized. So after you have 1,000 subscribers, this metric is not important. But many viewers will skip this part. They want to get straight to the value of the video. Here's an example retention graph when asking to like and subscribe. What works well for hooks? The most famous trailers are from The Diary of a CEO. His intros are one of the reasons why the channel has now over 7 million subs and over 500 million views. What we like to use are exciting phrases from the interview cut together to give the viewer a taste of what is going to come. Here's some ideas. Start with some wow effect, something emotional or unexpected. Here again, the goal is to evoke emotions. Humans only act if they feel anything. If not, they won't bother to watch the rest of your episode and they'll leave your channel. Second, we want to show that the guest is capable of delivering the solution for the outlined problem in our title and thumbnail. And we like to finish it by the use of a cliffhanger to build some curiosity. We've seen successful hooks that are over a minute long, so you have to decide for yourself how much you want to reveal. But even if you have no access to a highly skilled editor, you can start with a short introduction of the guest, no more than 2 sentences. Give your guest some credibility, but do not read the whole biography and then jump straight to the question. Here's an exceptional hook retention from Colleen and Samir. 96% are still watching at the 30-second mark is mind-blowing. Try to aim for 70% if you want YouTube to push your video to a wide audience.
Let's talk quickly about the last piece of the big 20%. Ideation. Before we start an episode, we can determine the success. A great preparation can make or break a video. Before we invite guests, we need to know why we are inviting the guests over. It can be for different reasons. Is your goal to create more leads, build your network with other successful people, or just growing your audience? Most of the time, it's beneficial to have your audience in your mind. Try to think about what pain they have and which guests could solve this problem. For example, if we see our audience has problems with thumbnails, we try to talk to a successful designer.
If titles are the weak spot, we invite a copywriter or a title expert.
If we decide which pain we are solving, we can now shape the whole structure of the podcast already. This helps us with questions, but more importantly, we can already shape the title thumbnail we want. We can also think about the emotion we want on the picture for our thumbnail, remember? Do we want maybe a short expression or a confident expression? It will make every task more efficient in the post-production. You, entrepreneur, knows how hard it is to solve problems in the post-production. To really understand your audience, we worked out the empathy map and answered several questions about how they feel, how they think, say, or hear. With this in mind, we are able to come up with different content buckets, such as titles, thumbnail, hooks, editing, strategy, and so on. And this is the full picture of our big 20% puzzle: ideation, packaging, and hook. Try to nail these 3 pieces first and spend the majority of your focus on them to succeed on YouTube.
And after you master the big 20%, you can start enhancing the rest of your podcast. Let's do a quick quiz. Which metric is the most important on YouTube? Subscribers, views, likes, CTR, or watch time? If you think views is the most important factor, you are wrong. It is watch time. YouTube's ultimate goal, like many other platforms, are that the users use their platform for a long time. To keep the explanation simple, if a lot of viewers click on your video and leave after a couple of seconds, YouTube will interpret this as a negative viewer signal and will stop recommending your videos. Therefore, your ultimate goal is to aim for a great retention. As I mentioned before, The better your hook, the more people stay overall as they are sold to your content. The more value you can offer in your podcast episode, the more people will come and stay till the end. And something some entrepreneurs are doing wrong is trying to sell themselves on each given episode. This is wrong. To cite one of the biggest CEOs who's using social media, Gary Vee. Jab, jab, hook. To go even further, Alex Hormozi. The longer you can wait for the ask, the better it will be. This means we want to give lots of value first, and then after we gave enough value, we can send our offer. I recently discovered an entrepreneur, Daniel Presley, on a podcast. He gave so much value that I started to seek for more episodes, and ultimately, I started using his products. So it doesn't matter if you're the guest or the host, this should be your ultimate goal for good retention and eyeballs. And here's an average chart of what good retention looks like on YouTube. But how can you keep up a good retention? The big podcasters record episodes which are sometimes over 2 hours long, but they cut out everything that doesn't bring any value or seems to be repetitive. You always have to have your audience in mind. Some people listen when they commute, so 30 to 45 minutes might be the sweet spot. Some listen while they're at the gym, etc. From our data, we know that many people prefer listening from Monday till Friday. And over the weekend, we tend to have fewer impressions. Try to ask your audience directly to find your sweet spot. Last but not least, the final important metric you should pay attention on is the returning viewer. This shows if your podcast is consistently growing and if people are coming back for your content. From there, you start your own engaged community. If you nail down all these metrics, there is nothing stopping you from growing your podcast.
Do you want personalized strategies to grow your podcast even faster? Click the link in the description because there you can book a call with us. See you there!